I guess, quick round of introductions. I'm Liam McDonald. I'm a collaboration specialist with Cisco, based in Victoria and cover enterprise in Tasmania.
Yeah, so my name's David Akins. I'm also a collaboration specialist covering ACT, so specifically federal and defence down in Canberra. Thanks for coming.
And we've also got Hello here from Cool.
Right.
And I think for everyone on the call, feel free to jump in, ask questions. We'll get to as many as we can. Anything that we show today as well, any follow-up, stuff like that, reach out to myself or David or any of the partner team. We're very keen to kind of start working with some people and sort of showing what we're bringing to the market with this Microsoft Teams Room announcement. I'll cover off a little bit of a summary kind of in terms of what are some of the value propositions that we bring, a little bit about the fleet, and then we'll jump into just some highlights around some of the administration side inside the Control Hub. We're also running another session later today at midday that's going to cover some of the analytics around the workspaces. So that's some of the sensor arrays and things that we have built into it. If we cover the actual portfolio, so announcement September last year, we've been racing pretty well. We're now MTR certified across the majority of the fleet, with the exception of the Roombar Pro. That's actually a brand new endpoint that we launched at Cisco Live US. We're going to have it, it's in beta right now, and we're hoping to have that certification completed. The last two on the right will actually be more of the Teams display mode. So that's actually where we can run the Desk Pro, which is our kind of all-in-one unit. We can run that in a personal mode. So today it can run as a Microsoft Teams room, and then later for that executive experience. So when you actually plug it in at home, has your personal calendar, can be used as a second screen, get all the audio and all of those good things that you want. And then finally, the room navigator for an external mode. So the panel inside the room and the panel outside the room are the exact same. When you boot it up, you just pick what it's going to be, and we're just getting it certified so that it'll actually match and have the Microsoft Teams display mode. Nice, unique feature about that as well is that it can also be in standalone mode. So for rooms where you don't need video, and that's an important part because I think it's part of when you're servicing an ecosystem. If you forget non-video rooms and then obviously you have to put in a third-party panel, you break that look and that feel. Users like continuity. They like the same look and feel that they can kind of get in. You know, I always say it that collaboration products aren't actually the star of the show. If they're doing their job well, people don't even know what they're using.
So just to, I suppose, just to add a couple of things here is, so it's been, as Liam was mentioning, there's been a lot of effort to bring the existing portfolio up to us being able to be certified for Microsoft Teams. The commitment from all of the R&D groups and business units that are building these great products is that all new products will also have that capabilities that come. So it's very much an integral part of the design. Speaking of which, there's also a lot of design gone into this whole sort of view around sustainability as well, so around the circular economy. So we often get a lot of questions from customers around what are you doing around sustainability to be consistent with what we're doing as an organisation. So the commitment from Cisco is that by FY25, which is only 12 months away now, is that all of our hardware platform, including these products here, will incorporate those circular design principles from both the product design and also packaging standpoint. Just the other 2 points that I just wanted to point out on this portfolio is that it's very rich in terms of user capability from a radio standpoint, so from that whole integration into a mobile. You might also have some customers or some use cases where this needs to be in a very secure environment, so like a government type organisation or a defence related industry. So all of these products also have a no radio option available as well. And in a similar discussion also from a country of origin standpoint, we also have all of these products available in a made in Mexico variant. So it's a slight price premium, but that might suit for a lot of organisations that have questions around country of origin as well. So a lot of thought's gone into the whole sort of portfolio.
Okay, so I guess obvious question, why Cisco and Room OS? Part of the partnership and what we built, and we can actually, if you want to see it downstairs, demonstrate it live as well. We actually have it built in a way that we have the Cisco's Room OS underneath. So that's a hardened appliance OS, and then we actually then run the MTR on top of that. What that allows us to do is actually then continue to develop. So that portfolio that you saw, that's not an exclusive to Microsoft. That's just Cisco's meeting room portfolio. So you're not going to get confused and go, do I have to pick the Microsoft endpoint versus Cisco endpoint? It's one and the same. You take it out of the box, you turn it on, and you pick which way it's going to go. It also means that we can continue to develop all of the capabilities that we've got on there. So things that we've done with our camera intelligence, whereby we've actually trained machine learning loads to actually recognize faces in software. That'll be important when you start thinking about headcount and use and capability in the room. Things like the audio intelligence treatment. Today, we can do really great things with audio intelligence. We actually do it on board in hardware as well. So it's not pumping it off to the cloud. Our noise cancelling is a little different. We actually focus on the human hertz frequency range of voice. So we actually look for what the voice spectrum that it's operating in, and that's how we take out background noise. A new capability that's coming to that is equalize voice. I think everyone's been on the meeting with whisperers and yellers in the meeting room. The next treatment that we're going to apply to the video fleet is the ability to actually pick and go equalize voices. That way, the B side, which is the remote side, which is the important side in the meeting, they're not constantly adjusting the volume as one guy's yelling, one guy's whispering, because we've all been there and done that. So we can continue to develop capabilities for the fleet, and it natively gets brought into that Microsoft ecosystem. So there's never this kind of exclusion or kind of thing where it's a premium thing on a Cisco world. This is always native across every platform. Other little things as well where, interop services and things like that, every endpoint now ships with USB-C pass-through. For those random ones where you can't get to the meeting, I think every exec gets some weird and wonderful meeting platform. As a tech professional trying to explain to an executive why they can't use a really nice endpoint to go to that meeting, nobody looks good in that conversation. So it is that thing where
join webcam.
Join with a webcam. It's kind of horrible. The other thing around that architecture of it, so we run the Microsoft Teams room in a Docker container on top of our operating system. That's going to help you a lot when you start talking to security. As I said, I cover enterprise. We have this in the banks. We have this in other places in enterprise. It's been pen tested. It's had kind of the security assertions run across it, and everyone's been pretty happy with the way we're handling this. I think the fact that the Android operating system is not actually touching the network, that goes down really well with the security team. It also means that, our operating system as well, we just continue to upgrade, monitor, kind of push capability through, and then we can continue to get those updates from the team's admin portal as well for the actual application stack.
So the protocol is still going to push the updates through to Android even though it is sitting off?
It can, yes. And on that slide as well, if anyone wants more of a technical kind of deep dive one, we do have a better one as well. That's kind of the generic one that we kind of give to everyone, but there is one that actually breaks down how that is, because I'm sure as you move through these things, you will get a lot of questions around this. Security is always the first kind of gate. I actually encourage everyone, if you're going to bring something new in, try to get to security first, not last. These capabilities that we're bringing across, some of the things that we talked about, that idea of interoperability. So one of the great things about this partnership is that out of the box, a Cisco Microsoft Teams room can actually attend a WebEx meeting as well natively. It doesn't do any of the silly reboots or any of those kind of other things that kind of happen. Because Microsoft have also created that partnership with Zoom, it'll take in through the Zoom partnership too. When it actually joins a WebEx meeting though, we actually pull through our UI and you actually get the full meeting room control capability in the WebEx meeting. So that way you can actually participate on other platforms at scale and not kind of have to wonder about training users and going, oh, you can't do that, you can do this. So it's a really nice workflow whereby we've got it now where people just walk in and they look for a blue button, a green button, or a purple button. And they all say join, and then they join their meeting and they kind of get on with their day. As we were saying before about the audio intelligence, so that was that noise cancelling algorithm we've built. The camera intelligence, so you can see there we've removed a lot of dead space. So framing is the idea of recognizing a face, cropping and pulling it out. Really good example of that is today I'm on a meeting, we're in a large room with remote attendees. If we had framing turned on one of our cameras, it would actually take David and I as close as possible. So that way the remote attendees can be seeing a presentation and still getting context of the person. I'd say right now what they're seeing is two people standing up in a wider view. Yeah. So we want to crop down and actually give you that response because, again, this is about the remote side, not about what's happening in the room. And the last one I'll do was around content sharing. So as I said, as standard, we're going to be pushing USB-C across the board, making sure that we support things like Miracast, things that workflows that people are used to. So, everyone knows Windows K, connect to the endpoint, get on with their day, and then kind of share content. So as I said around sensors, so every one of our panels actually ships with sensors in it, temperature, humidity, and air quality. Full disclosure again, nothing that you're going to see here today is a license add-on or anything. It's one license to run on our cloud platform, and all of the sensors and everything are just a capability in the endpoint. So inside of the camera, we can measure faces, we can do ambient noise and acoustic noise. Inside of the panel, we can give you temperature, humidity, air quality. That opens up new conversations as well to property teams and people like that. We're seeing it a lot whereby, property is a technology company now. but property and tech generally aren't playing that well together. You're seeing new things pop up inside the room, outside the room, and none of it with a thought around how does that affect the user experience. Couple of slides, and then we'll jump into the control hub side. So this is that idea around how we actually then deploy camera capabilities. So this is the ability to pick the framing, active speaker, things like that. We've made the UI really nice. Again, it's just exposed through to the Microsoft Teams room. Person swipes to the right, clicks on the camera, picks the framing layout that they want, and then they get that on the remote end. So what we'd see is that's that image of the top left, where that's a large meeting room with 3 people spread out around a table. And then the remote end actually sees now a cropped down version. They can actually see what's happening. Clever little things. If someone stands up in that frame, the camera will actually adjust digitally and then pull them up in that frame too. Big one is, especially for integrators, multi-room and kind of larger scale rooms. So what you're looking at there in that little animation, that's something we're bringing out later this year called cinematic mode. The ability to actually plumb in multiple cameras into our codecs. Our flagship codecs have always been able to do this, but it required tons of manual programming. I can think of one of the FSI's boardrooms where, 24 people, 4 cameras, and, 3 months of programming. What we're going to do is build it natively into the endpoint. So we'll use the beamforming microarrays, the ability to see faces, and then we'll get the best view in. So if you have those sidebar conversations happening between 2 people, we'll actually grab those 2 people and pull them to the forefront of the meeting. I think, Dave, do you want to touch on that?
Next one is around meeting zones. So this addresses a really important problem with customers that are deploying video into open plan areas. So the typical, what we're typically seeing across all of our customers is, of course, as they start to deploy these video with this camera intelligence into open plan environments, is that they start to then pick up people that in that conference that shouldn't really be in that conference. So we've got a great example of this at our North Sydney office. We have our main demonstration facility. We've got a glass wall around it, and then right to the side of that, we've got a huge television set that's effectively got Juanita Phillips reading the news, and she often comes into our conferences. So the typical ways, if you think that customers would go about addressing that, would be via the physical. So either put in curtains, put in blinds, or put in some frosted glass. What this allows the user to do here is to set up these zones. And what that just does is you just setting up an area. So a bit similar to like a presenter track style setup. So you're setting up these zones where only faces are picked up by the camera that are within that area. So it just allows you then to just more freely deploy these units out into open plan areas.
All right, so with that little overview, we'll give you some context around how then that relates back to the platform. So everything registers what we call Control Hub. So it's a cloud-based platform that basically you can onboard all of the endpoints onto and then administer, manage analytics reporting at scale. So that ability then to take in and kind of get your device inventory management, things like setting up templates, the ability to actually do bulk configuration changes, update a template, it'll automatically push through to the endpoints. To give you an idea, Codec Pro, kind of the large-scale integrator unit, has up to 900 configurations that can be pushed by cloud. Right down to Desk Pro, which is a smaller unit, it's about 240 configurations. So if you need to change gain level on a microphone, set a profile that whereby you want the volume in a certain room to be set to 70% because that room maybe has a little bit more traffic around it. Do you want the audio acoustic treatments? Do you want it to be optimized for my voice in the room or optimized to cancel noise based on, a high traffic area with lots of glass and things like that? So what you can do as an integrator is actually look at it and go into the customer, give them a better output and measurement, but also give them the tools to actually manage this. This is what people expect with SaaS. This is tick boxes, radio buttons, and true and false. I've been a Cisco guy for a very long time, call manager 4.1 onwards. It's not that specialized skill set that we were kind of known for. What we've done is readopted and moved with the market. This is one of those things where it's more of, I'd say, a business analyst tool. If someone just gets in, they can easily see what's happening within it. Full role-based access control, all the things that you'd expect, integrated into single sign-on, two-factor, and everything else, and then pretty much then get everything around it. Other last point around it, which is unique as well, is that we are a CVI provider as well. It would be great if every customer rang up and said, we're doing an entire fleet refresh off the bat. That's not always the case. So our cloud platform can actually support a lot of our older units as well. So think SX, MX, and even the earlier versions of the WebEx Room series. So then they get that assurity whereby they can actually have older fleet commingled with the newer fleet. And then you can see there at the top on that kind of platform level, we've got a Cisco badge and then we've got a Microsoft badge. So as they're transitioning to Microsoft Teams rooms, they can continue to sweat assets. It's a single portal, manage everything from the same place. And they're not hopping around going, I have to do this on this box and this on this box. So device templates, ability to actually pull a template together, set it up the way that you want. As an integrator or someone rolling things out, that's really helpful. You know what I mean? Certain customers like things the way that they like. So, get it set up once and even give them the power to do it. Maybe it's that thing where you're trying to add value. Not everything has to be a move, add, change. This is a very easy portal to manage. So whereby if you kind of go through, educate, run up, set up templates, then a local administrator can be coming on going, oh, we got one new endpoint. Let's just plug it in, do the Microsoft Teams enrollment, enroll it into this platform. To enroll into this platform, it's a 16-digit code. And then you do the Teams admin enrollment. It'll automatically pick up its template, and then everything going through continues to flow down. So you can see here inside of a template, we can automatically set things like default volume levels. Top right corner there, you can see that 900 configurations that I was talking about. So you can really get into the guts of these units, customize them, set them up the way that they want. And I think it's also great because you do have those customers who have different needs in different rooms. On the software management channel, so like I said, ROS is underneath all of this. We provide the ability to give beta, stable, and kind of all of the things that you'd expect. Really handy for you guys if you want to actually be on the bleeding edge. You'd sign up to our beta program, you get one of the endpoints on, you get the latest and greatest. So that way you're always at least a month to 2 months ahead of everyone in the kind of customer world. And then when you're going to meetings with a customer and they go, well, what's this new audio treatment about? What does it actually do? You can actually demonstrate it in a safe manner. Customers can even have these on their platforms as well. So we don't just keep it to the integrator side. When the customer signs up with you guys and actually implements a Microsoft Teams room with us, they can sign their Control Hub up into the beta platform. They can pick certain endpoints we generally recommend in technology. I think it's that kind of thing where I've seen many business users say, I'm okay with it being beta, and then they get beta and it's phone calls are made quickly. We can even do a thing whereby we can have a stable as well, whereby you can get a preview mode of 2 weeks out. So whereby that's code that's very well ratified. It's not beta, it's not early adopter. And you can actually give the business, certain parts of the business, a taste of kind of what's coming through and then roll it out across it. Obvious one as well, things like software update times, we only do it out of hours. When you enroll a device, it actually asks for the time zone. We'd never actually push out a security update in hours unless it's urgent. So if it's got a security thing attached to it, but a user can even interrupt that. So we'll never do it in a call. And when it comes out of the call, it'll actually give them the option to say, hey, there's an urgent update. Do you want to run it now? If they hit postpone, it'll actually put it off for 6 more hours. Usually that's enough for it to fall outside the business hours, and then the update gets pushed down and rolled out. All right, so as I was saying, this idea of kind of managing, pushing everything out and pushing it through. So this is at a device level. So you go into an individual device and think of it almost like stacking the Russian dolls inside of each other. Start with a device, then you'd assign it a template, and then you kind of go up to the workspace area where you can manage multiple devices at scale. So you can see here where we can actually go in pretty quickly, see general information like IP addresses, firmware loads, and things like that. Nice part around the configuration point as well. If you're having trouble with Control Hub administering for whatever reason the device is playing up, getting to cloud, you can actually launch to the local web interface of it. We'll actually do a TLS tunnel down into the device as well. There's a security handshake and things that go with it. Again, if anyone has questions on that, we can give you information around it. But it gives you that level whereby, for whatever reason, if there's a problem with getting it to the cloud, you can actually then go locally to the device. As long as it's got an IP, we'll actually encrypt, tunnel into it, and get you into that web interface. So then you've got that next level down where maybe someone doesn't have to go to the room. If that fails, someone's going to the room, unfortunately. But we give you a couple of ways to get at these endpoints whereby, and that's important because Australia is a really big geography, and having to tell someone that they're driving to Dubbo, exactly, or somewhere like that, we want to make sure that we can manage these things.
Does that go with onboarding in the first place as well? You have to be at the device to onboard it.
So Yeah, so at the moment with Microsoft Teams rooms, yes, because the Microsoft Teams enrollment has to be physically done. There is work, I believe, and I think, Carlo, can you comment on that, around zero touch?
So,
Okay.
but zero touch for Android is in progress. The problem is, well, not the problem. The reality is that the way Microsoft Zero Touch deployment works is via Intune, via Autopilot, and that's a service that's Windows centric currently. Onboarding Android devices is high touch, or I would say medium touch right now, but they're working through it. Because there's no reason why they can't onboard an Android device using the same process. Intune already is very capable of managing Android devices. It's just that initial deployment step of we've turned it on, we need it in Intune so Intune can do its job. That piece of the service is the part they're working on. He wasn't willing to give a date, but I know it's a priority for them because getting the Android management level as close as possible to the Windows management level is a goal that they're accelerating towards as hard as possible.
That's true.
What about the Cisco?
The Cisco side, we are zero touch at the moment, but our part's very minimal. So you literally put in the code remotely, and then it'll go straight to the Microsoft enrollment piece. So for everyone's benefit on the call, if you didn't hear that conversation, it was around zero touch. Just talking to Carlo, it's a work in progress on the Microsoft side. It's coming for Windows, and it's been worked on Android. And happy, throw questions into the Q&A around it as well. I know, so we give you the 16-digit code gets generated here, and then the 16-digit code gets put into the endpoint. And you can put that in remotely. Yeah.
So you can get someone remotely just to then plug that in and off you go. Yeah.
And there is a low touch deployment option for Android as well.
Yeah, so the passcode.
Yeah, passcode for the installer, so which we use a lot. So I'll back end all the
Bottom left, and we'll touch on that in a minute, the ability to actually set alerts around devices, because it's important to know when things are going wrong. And then from the top left, so when we've jumped into the actual workspace, we will cover this more in the midday session, but this idea of then actually getting some of that environmental data. So as you can see, straight away, we can see what Teams are in road we're looking on. We can actually see what's happening with the navigator panel. Is it online? Because the actual unit pairs directly with the device. It can pair over the network as well, which is really important, so you don't have to be directly plumbed into the hardware. So you can actually do those remote deployment things. That's really important when you're talking about the external. So if there was an outdoor panel for this as well, it would literally just appear as another panel below it. And it's that nice kind of management style where you actually get visibility. You can see the models. You can actually see that that's a room bar. We put the right picture against it. So, when you're getting new people into the business and you're saying, hey, look for this endpoint, you give it the right names. You can even do clever things like tagging endpoints. So, do you have the C-level endpoints? And that's important when you're actually setting up alerts or maybe doing reporting and things like that, because it is a big thing around this. That when you start talking analytics, you are in fleet management. So then getting the right tags on an endpoint, getting the right naming convention, getting the right sensors turned on. So you can actually see there whereby we can see the real-time utilization metrics, where we can see if the device is occupied, how many people are in the room. Below that, then we've got the environmental metrics where we can actually see the audio quality in the room. I think, a lot of you probably have known in the past, customer complains about the audio and then they have to pay for an RT60 test. This actually does it natively inside the endpoint. Really cool feature for the integrators as well. When you deploy an endpoint, you can actually run an audio test in the room. So you hit test device, it'll record and it'll play it back, and then you can actually hear. So, that final sign off for the room for the customer, you're saying to them, hey, great, we've not only installed it, configured it in the template that you want, we've also tested the room and we're happy with the audio that was coming out of it. So it's that kind of assurance level that you're not going to get revisits. And if you do, you should be able to do everything from the cloud, so that there's less visits to the room, maybe less drive time for some people.
Does it use that test to do?
So the mics dynamically auto-tune on a full reboot, will actually play these noises. Yeah. So it's already done that. What this is doing is highlighting if you don't have enough soft treatment. So your acoustic is actually giving you an RT60 readout, and will actually give you green, amber, red. If it's red, the device has actually said, I've tuned myself in as much ways as possible. You need to actually treat this room. Really good example. A customer, they had a lovely new building, polished concrete floors, lots of glass and rake metal ceilings. Rang us, endpoints are terrible. And we were like, no, they're not. And we went down there, we played the test, and we said, this is what people are hearing. We logged them in, and we said, you're redlining. You literally have turned your effective microphone range from, this to over here. And then they kind of went through it. They looked at it. It was a data-driven conversation, and that's an important piece. You know what I mean? There's a lot of emotion gets involved when someone's having a bad experience, but if you can actually come to them with data, it becomes a very easier conversation, especially if there is cost involved with that. You know what I mean? This customer had to then inject foam into their rake metal ceiling because they weren't going to put up soft treatment. And now that they've addressed it, they're actually getting the experience that they want, and the equipment's performing the way that they want. Yeah.
Do you have a list of device management features / options that are in Cisco but not in the MTR Pro portal? Having the list is handy to explain why customers would be better off having 2 device management portals to manage each device.
I think it's more just down to fleet management capability. So we don't really compare or bake off against Teams Admin Portal because it's still being developed and kind of built up for Android. And Microsoft's made the commitment to do that. So it's not that it's an unfair comparison to kind of say, well, it's not that Teams Admin Portal can't do it. It's more that it's not doing it at the moment because we've been doing this for over 5 years on our platform. And this is more around kind of the device management side of things. Teams Admin Portal shines whereby when you're troubleshooting the Microsoft Teams experience that sits on top of that. That's what Microsoft's built the capability around it. I can't really comment on what Microsoft's doing in terms of device management and things like that. The thing I would say is our APIs are completely public and open. So we don't, charge for API access or anything like that. There is a middle ground that is being worked on and can be found. But at the moment, you would generally want 2 platforms if you want the data, sensors, analytics, and capability of our endpoints. And then when you want, that kind of application stack of actually measuring how the meeting is performing, that would be inside the Teams Admin Portal. In terms of feature readout, we don't have a full feed, as I pointed out, the Codec Pro has 900 configurations. I don't think we've actually printed out the 900. We may have. But yeah, I can come back to you on that. Do you want to maybe grab that person's email and then I can link up with them afterwards and kind of find out a bit more about what the requirement is? Alerts. So what happens when it goes wrong? And that's a really important one because if the business is calling you, it's reactive. So, how do we be more proactive? So we've actually this is an early stage that we've just released this in the past couple of months. We're going to be continually iterating it. So there's things that aren't there today, and there'll probably be some obvious questions that are going to come. We've just got to build them. So the ability to actually set alerts for devices so that when you actually have a problem occur, you get alerted and then alerted in the right way. So the nice part here is we can actually create an alert for a device whereby if it's an issue found and resolved or not found. So think microphones going offline, the camera going offline, something like that, something inside of the actual device itself that's going to impact the meeting. Because if we're just reporting on the network being online to the device, everything's green and you think it's fine. But that can't be the case sometimes. So if, let's say, one of the connectors on the microphone from the external breaks to the codec, we'll actually be able to create device alerts around that because the unit can sense when some of its parts are or aren't working. We can group those, give them names. We can actually then put up to 30 devices in an alert. So then you can create tiering of alerts because not everything is a SEV1. You know what I mean? Like the 2-person meeting room on the ground floor can be offline maybe for a day. You still want to know about it, but it's got to be the right severity. And then at the bottom point as well, the really good thing that I think works well is this: don't put it into email, please. Email is great, but it's not the right function when things are going wrong. You know what I mean? Everyone's been on that email trail trying to diagnose and fix things. Put it into a webhook. And then again, turn into a data-driven conversation. Because if it's a webhook, we can go to the ticketing system. We can actually then put that alert into a ticket, alert the right people, triage. So when it is the CEO's boardroom's gone offline and it's a SEV1, everyone knows it's a SEV1 because the ticketing system's basically done the blast out, raised the severity 1, and the process can get started, tracked from day 1. You know what I mean? Like how many times has it been someone comes to you afterwards and go, great, it was fixed. How long did it take? What was it? And what was our PIR and what's the problem management? And if it's in the ticketing system, we can actually say, okay, issue was raised at 9:01. It got opened and actioned by 9:05. People have updated notes. We raised a ticket with the integrator visited site, parts been ordered. You know what I mean? So then it's actually that thing whereby, because most people, they're not angry that things go offline. They just want an answer. And this is how we give them a better answer. Finally, a little preview around where we're going with this. So this is launching in September. So this is the idea of really scaling up that workspace management and giving you guys a lot of visibility. So we've deliberately made it have lots of nice problems. So there's lots of little exclamation marks over things. So it's how's the room performing, how's it's living, how's it's breathing. So you can see straight away one of the units in that auditorium. We've got an alert on the camera. We've got an alert on the touch panels. We've actually got alerts on everything. Yeah, pretty much. So that, there's something really bad happening there. So it's that kind of thing. There's the visual. You can browse through and actually have a look at it. You could create alerts off of that. We've got work to do on that alert side. Like, I know straight away that the things that people are going to be asking is jitter, packet loss, latency. We've got to build all that. The good thing is that it's not one of those one and done with us, because it's SaaS, because there's a commitment to this. And again, nothing is exclusive somehow to a Cisco experience. This is native, it'll work, and then the Microsoft experience only gets better. All right, finally, how do you get access to some of this stuff? Maybe some of you are Cisco partners, maybe some of you aren't. dCloud's a great resource to start with, whereby you can actually sign up. There's labs in there. There's great partner programs with the distributor network as well. You know, you can get access to sandboxes and Control Hub, play with it, actually put kit on it. We make sure it's very accessible so that you're not wondering and looking at PowerPoint slides. You know, I try not to kill people with PowerPoint. Anyone here, like if you have any follow-ups, if you want to actually see something, just tap me on the shoulder. Happy to answer any questions. I think, Kayla, would you anything to add there around?
So look, I'm not an expert across the cloud management stuff. I don't think I've had much time to look at or touch. Even sitting through this, though, what I can see is that there's a huge range of functionality there that, as Liam said, is not available in Pro Portal right now. And it's very device focused and functionality focused, which is not what Pro Portal really is right now, especially for Android. Pro Portal for Android is low feature right now. It's for Windows, it's getting further and further. What I will say is that, thanks. What I will say is the key things that Pro Portal is going to look to do is to handle your updates, both for the Android app and for the Android version, the underlying OS version, which is super important because that needs to go through Microsoft certification to be official for it. The other part of where you may want to start leaning on your M365 cloud is based on certain security conversations with certain organizations. You are going to want to look at Intune and specific Intune configurations for Android. We can get into the weeds on that, but reality is there is best practice around that, and I hear out in the real world quite a lot. You're not putting an Android device on my network. Cisco's got a pretty elegant answer to that, saying, hey, it's actually not on your network, but there are still things we can do to. It's actually quite a secure. The Android MTR devices are the Android MTR devices are very secure by nature. They're not a phone. They're not a standard Android device. But there are things we can do inside Intune to completely secure the account and other things to isolate that from potential vulnerabilities. Because that's one of the ones I've gotten regularly from finance and government is that, hey, this account's got no MFA. It's got a non-expiring password. This is a big problem. We can't have this account out there. And so there are ways to isolate that account, lock it down, and use some of Intune's sort of fancier features to make sure that account is only getting access to the things it should when it's running on this device, when it's running on our network, sort of thing.
Any questions from chat?
Just the one that and he also said thank you for your answer. So.
Mm-hmm.
The updates handle. You've got device updates and you've got the Android update.
Yep.
Is it going through Cisco first, then through Teams to get the update to the device?
So anything that we do that the Teams Room experience can kind of run on, Microsoft get visibility of. We run a monthly cadence on the Room OS. So we call it Room OS. That's the base layer. We do a monthly release cadence on that, provide you all the release notes and things like that. It won't affect the Android container because it's sitting on top of it. We will test it though before it goes. So every room OS has to be tested. It has to be tested against, like, literally, so, you know, run it in the lab against a full Microsoft run through. So before the actual production release gets put out, it would go through, you know, the latest alpha, beta, and so forth. And at every stage, there would be a tranche of testing to make sure that it does not impact that Microsoft Teams room on top. Because that's the main point here, is that this is not a Cisco operating system. It's there to bring capability through. It is a Microsoft Teams room. And we want the customers to know that it's a Microsoft Teams room. It's not a, you know, there's no other brand in there. When they turn it on, it'll be Microsoft Teams. When they reboot it, it'll be Microsoft Teams. So anything we're doing below on the operating system below that cannot impact that. And then that's a commitment that's been made from our business unit. Like, to be clear around this partnership, this wasn't born out of engineering. This came out of Chuck Robbins, our CEO, and Satya Nadella at Microsoft. This came at the C level. And then it was ratified down through the business, and they did it right. Like, you know, I think it's people, when they heard the announcement, were very happy, but they're also very curious, because we've traditionally been fierce competitors in the market. But this is not one of those plays where somehow it's going to be something else. This is a Microsoft Teams room, and it cannot be impacted by updates that we do or anything else on top of that. So then, same with major releases from Microsoft, we have to completely run, bug scrub, and do everything with it and make sure that it's going to work well on our hardware. Same as every vendor does with theirs. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not saying that we do anything better or worse or in any way than any other vendors. They all do a very good job of making sure their Teams rooms are up to scratch as well. I think the unique part around it, though, is where we bring through that ability. You know, our endpoints have an NVIDIA GPU inside of them. Like, they are crazily overspec'd. So that means we've got a way longer R&D runway to develop capabilities on it. You know, the framing capability, we're playing with taking that beyond, and we've got it into the quad cams now. So the quad cams are a larger unit in the bigger room. We've actually got the framing capability into that. Now what we're looking at going with that is how do we then bring that into more frames, more people into it? That means training more machine learning loads. People are unpredictable, so it can take time. But no, so to your point, to your answer, we will not impact the Teams room with updates. It will have to be tested thoroughly before it gets out there.
And the same goes
So the room operating system is the firmware, is essentially. So anything, we call it an operating system because it's an appliance level. So we basically have, you know, a modified hardened Linux appliance that you can't get into. You know, it's one of those ones where, and then we run the MTR on top of it inside of Docker, and then that way we can actually then, it's almost like an abstraction layer. So then we can bring through our capabilities up in the hardware, and it's important because we do everything in hardware as well. Like, that NVIDIA GPU is doing all of the audio intelligence, all of the framing, everything's done on board in the hardware. Nothing's pumped off to a cloud, because that's another risk where security all of a sudden say, well, hang on, you're putting my audio feed where it's happening in the endpoint, going into the meeting, and then it's going into the Microsoft stack. Cool. All right.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you for coming.